Welcome to The Journey, a monthly conversation series from Collegiate Sports Associates featuring leaders from across the intercollegiate athletics landscape discussing their career journeys, offering advice to up-and-coming administrators, and reflecting on the issues of the day. This month's episode is hosted by Craig Littlepage, former Director of Athletics at the University of Virginia and Senior Advisor to CSA. Our special guest this month is Bill Hancock, Executive Director of the College Football Playoff. Paige, take it away.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for being able to join me this morning in this next episode of The Journey. And you and I have had a real good friendship and our wives for probably about 20 years or so. But we would like to explore a little bit your path in terms of you arriving at this point in your career. What were some of those events? Who were some of those people that influenced you? And then we'll talk a little bit about what's going on currently. So I'd like to start with just the question of hearing about your childhood, the things and the people that introduced you to sports, and what drew you to sports as a boy.
Well, thank you, Paige, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to this. I think we're going to have fun. My dad owned a daily newspaper in a small community. And so our family was wired into every aspect of the community. My dad and mom were musicians, and my dad was an athlete. And so my childhood was all about music and sports. My dad went to Missouri, and he wanted the three of us kids to go there, and he wound up being 0 for 3 on that. We all went to Oklahoma instead. But we were deeply exposed to sports and also to music, mostly classical music, growing up, and that's been my life ever since.
So we all have people in our youth that have inspired us, and you've mentioned parents, but there are also teachers and coaches. Who are some of those figures, coaches or mentors, that might have influenced you early in your life, and who were the people that kind of guided you as your career was getting traction?
Yeah, I will go back to my sort of youth here, childhood, if you will. My first job was a paper route when I was 12 years old, and I rode my bicycle and delivered my 50 newspapers to the customers, and learned just focus on what you have to focus on. And at that time, it was throw the paper on the porch. Don't throw it in the bushes or on the grass. And so kind of learned how to do things right. Moved up to become janitor for the newspaper office when I was a freshman in high school, and got a newspaper column when I was a sophomore. So I made every mistake you could make. But when I went to school at Oklahoma, one of my mentors, probably my primary one, was John McLeod. John was a young basketball coach at Oklahoma. John was hired to coach Oklahoma when he was 29 years old. Mm-hmm. And I learned discipline. I learned that if the bus leaves at 10 a.m., that means it really leaves at 9:55. And so you better be there at 9:50 to be ready. John McLeod was a great mentor of mine.
So we have something in common, and we've talked about this probably years ago. I was also a newspaper boy, and I had about 40 people on my route. The other thing that you had to do was to make sure that on those rainy days it got there on the front porch or in the storm door dry.
Yep.
Very important.
And they would tell you if it was wet.
Yes, absolutely.
I love delivering papers. I enjoyed that part. And it's 104 degrees here in Dallas today, but we'd get on our bikes in southern Oklahoma where I lived, and we'd just go deliver the papers. And then we'd deliver them when it was 15 degrees and snowing.
Yep.
That was part of the discipline, is you just had to show up and get your job done every day.
So one of the great things about being a paper boy was that you got the papers dropped on your front porch, and in your case, you were right there with the family business. But I would sit there every morning around 7 a.m. and read the sports, And then I would go from the sports to the business section. And I don't know what drew me to the business section, except for there were a lot of numbers and I didn't really understand too much of it. But that, in fact, was kind of the path that I took to going to business school and majoring in economics in college.
Isn't it critically important to be a reader?
Yes.
No matter what topic, just be a reader. And the young people come to me and ask for career advice. And I always say, read everything you can get your hands on. Well, Bill, I don't really like reading. Find something you like. You may like sports, you may like humor, but there is something that you can enjoy reading. And gosh, be a reader. Be a reader.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you graduated from the University of Oklahoma. I won't say what the year was, but it was in the 70s, which was a great decade. What did you study in college, and what were your plans as you graduated from college regarding thoughts about your career?
Because of growing up in a newspaper family, you won't be surprised to hear that I did study journalism. It was easy for me, and I wanted to become a newspaper columnist. I thought that's what I would be, would be Bob Ryan. That's what I thought was ahead of me. And I found a job in the print shop at the student newspaper. And then I moved up to the front shop and became the editor of the student newspaper. And then I learned about an opportunity in athletics called the Sports Information Office that I had never heard of. And I found out they hired students. They hired 3 students every semester. And I went over there and said, I want to apply. And I got a job as a student assistant in the SID office. And then after my junior year in college, they only had 2 full-timers. And one of the full-timers left, and the head SID came to me and said, we want you to become assistant SID, take this full-time job. And I said, oh man, I'd love that, but I don't have my degree. I'm not done with school. And he said, yeah, but we know, but you only need 6 hours, and the athletic department will pay your tuition for those 6 hours, and you can go to night school and work. And that's what I did. I believe the tuition was, $138, which to me was more money than I could ever imagine. And I do know my first salary was $7,000 a year.
Okay, that was a lot of money back then too for a single guy.
A lot of money.
Right?
Back in 1943 or whenever it was. Yeah.
So, Bill, you've had a front row seat to some of college athletics' most popular sporting events. And as you said, you started your career in sports information. For our younger listeners, that is now media relations. I think that's what we call it.
Yep.
Are there specific memories that you have from the various roles that you've played, not only at the University of Oklahoma as a sports information director, but with the NCAA and the basketball tournament, the BCS, and currently the CFP? What, if any, are specific memories that you have as your career was ascending?
Probably like you, Paige. Most of my memories are about the people. We've been so lucky to have worked with so many great people. You and I have. I got a job in the Big 8 conference office, stayed there 11 years, managed championships, and including the basketball tournament, but I ran track meets and wrestling and gymnastics and swimming, and I learned so much from doing all that. And then I got a call from Tom Jernstedt at the NCAA in 1989, and he said, we're looking for somebody to be the director of the NCAA men's basketball championship, and I want you to come talk to us about it. And that opened the door for me. I wound up spending 16 years at the NCAA, literally never had an unpleasant day, never had a bad day. Always looked forward to going to work there. And that led me to my memories of, we were lucky. We got to sit at the official table at the tournament. And I remember a guy, the school was playing Michigan, and I felt this presence in front of me. And the guy was humming the Michigan fight song, Hail to the Victors Valiant. And I looked up, and who was standing there humming the Michigan fight song was Dean Smith. And it's been the coaches. Bob Knight, my Bob Knight memories are not all great. Bob Knight showed up late for a meeting that we had to do that you were a part of, a pre-tournament meeting, and he showed up late. And I'll never forget Terry Holland said, "Lock the door. Don't let him in." And so we heard this knock at the door, and we knew who it was. And Terry said, "Nope, don't let him in." So we didn't admit Coach Knight, and he wasn't very happy about it. But Terry was a hold the line guy, and the coaches, Mike Krzyzewski, I'll never forget. I always went to shake hands with the coaches before the games and shook Mike's hand, and he had a deeply personal message for me that day. That was before a Final Four game. Lon Kruger, Roy Williams, Gary Williams. Oh my goodness, Gary Williams.
He could turn the switch on and off pretty quickly, couldn't he?
Oh my goodness, could he ever? And you knew which way the switch had been turned. You could tell. And so you had to behave one way with Gary when he had the switch one way, and then a different way the other day. Coach Calhoun, oh my goodness, kind of the same as Gary as far as being so emotional. But then I got to be around Dave Gavitt a lot, learned a lot from Dave. Gene Corrigan, oh my goodness. What, without being a teacher, without being Professor Corrigan, what a teacher Gene was. I'll dive back a little more and remember the time when we were ready to play in the Final Four in Minneapolis and we didn't have any basketballs. And Chris Schumann, the guy in charge of the basketballs, had locked them in a little ante room off the baseball dugout. We were in the Metrodome and locked them in there, and Chris was late. And nobody else had a key. So what can we do? We have no basketballs. And it has a happy ending. Chris shows up. He knows he's late. He runs in there and he unlocks the door, and we're able to play.
You need balls to play. There's no doubt about that. You need a couple hoops, and you need the basketballs for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've had a great career, as I said in the beginning, and you've been inducted as a member of various halls of fame. What are the career achievements that you valued the most? You've talked about friendships, but let's talk about Bill and what you've accomplished.
Oh, it is the friendships. I guess technically at the tournament when I got there was no operations manual. There was very little consistency from arena to arena. And we built that over the first 18 months I was there. We created a manual. Back to Terry Holland. Terry Holland said, he said, Bill is known as Dr. No, because he has to tell the people at the arenas, no, you can't do it that way. And what we wanted was, if you were going to play in Albany, we wanted you to be the same, treated the same as if you were in Richmond or Sacramento or San Diego. And there's only one way to do that, and that's to train the people at the schools. So we did develop the first operations manual. And then coming over to football, well, my basketball friends, many of them said, you're going to the dark side. You know that, Bill. You're over there with Darth Vader on football. But I always loved football, even during the time that I cherished so much of working with the basketball tournament. And I think you know this, Paige. This year will be my 45th consecutive Final Four to attend.
Wow.
As we say in Oklahoma, if the creek don't rise. And I'm sure there's people that have been to many more than that. But I told Danny Gavitt, I'm shooting for 75. That's my goal here.
Okay.
Yeah. And starting the football was an unbelievable opportunity. When we started, I was with the BCS for 8 years, and then we started the college football playoff. And the commissioners came to me and said, we want you to start it. And I was the only staff member. And so they said, get a staff, get an office, do the whole thing. And we did that. I didn't appoint the selection committee, but I did call all of them to ask them to join. And that was a remarkable opportunity that no one else will ever have.
Right.
in our game, to be the only staff member and be told go make it happen, and of course keep us posted and don't mess it up.
Yeah.
But go make it happen, and we now have 17 on our staff. Our office is in Dallas. So yeah, that was just a lucky thing for me, and it was being in the right place at the right time, and maybe maybe having treated people right.
Right. Right.
I learned a long time ago, treat people the way you want to be treated, and life's pretty easy if you do that.
Yep. So you've had a chance to build a lot of teams, administrative teams. You've worked with some of the most outstanding professionals in college athletics during your career. Are there common traits that you've seen, or what are the characteristics that you're looking for when you're assembling teams?
The people that I learned from, I have seen the trait of a mixture of kindness and sincerity and toughness. Just think of the people that you and I have worked with through the years, and I think that combination, to be kind, to be honest, but also to be tough, to know you're going to have to make difficult decisions and that some people are not going to be happy with, but for the good of whatever entity there is, you have to make those decisions. But be kind about it. Now, we've known some bullies who have gone to the top. I mentioned one on this podcast, and they succeed. But I think overwhelmingly, that kindness trait helps you. And I don't subscribe to the Leo Durocher theory of nice guys finish last, although nice guys who are afraid to make a decision and afraid to hurt somebody, they probably do finish last.
Yep. So, Bill, you authored a book, Riding with the Blue Moth. What was that experience like writing this book, and how does one start on such an ambitious project? You already talked about starting the college football playoff. Here's another incredible opportunity, writing a book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you need some inspiration. And my topic, of course, was my cross-country bicycle ride that I undertook after our son Will was killed in the Oklahoma State basketball plane crash. And I had an inspiration, and mine came from Jim Host, our friend Jim Host, who was a publisher and entrepreneur, and is still a great friend for so many of us. And Jim said, you need to write a book about this experience. I had written a daily journal on the cross-country bicycle ride. If I had email connection, I would send an email to our son and our daughters-in-law and some friends. And one of those friends was Jim Host. And Jim said, you need to write a book about this. So I was a writer. I am a writer. I learned as a reader. I learned how to write at an early age. And I just began, wrote most of the book on airplanes. That's when I have my free time. My creative time is traveling. And I often think about the person who was sitting in the next seat, maybe looking over my shoulder and maybe not, looking at my laptop and thinking, what is this guy doing? But got it put together, got a publisher who was eager to have it, who gave me an editor who made it better. And you can still get the book. Plug me into Amazon, and you can get the book for, I think it's 24 cents or something. So I get my 10% of that, so I get 2.4 cents.
So I have not only read the book, but I have shared the book many times with friends and aspiring coaches and administrators because it was such a source of inspiration. So congratulations and well done on that. A big part of that book and that journey from coast to coast was your teammate, and that's your wife, Nicki. And she had, a great career of her own. What was it, 2004 Master's Teacher of the Year, I guess it was, or something like that. I may not have the title exactly right. Talk about the importance of her in all this journey that you have had from Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma to Dallas, Texas with the college football playoff.
Yeah, she's my best friend and mentor and counselor. Just you have one of those, Paige. Nicki and I were high school sweethearts. She was a sophomore and I was a junior when we began dating. And someone in our little town said, "Oh, Nicki will never go out with Bill." She's beautiful and worldly, and Bill's a nerd. So she'll never go out with Bill. But she did. And she was a high school English teacher for 30 years. I'm glad you remembered that. She was named the Master Teacher of the Year in the state of Kansas one year. And she cared about her students.
Yes.
And English teachers have a particularly hard job. All teachers have hard jobs, but an English teacher is an editor, and because she taught writing. And so she would bring this stack of papers home and she'd begin to read them and make comments. And we were at a football game and a woman came up to Nicki and said, "Are you Mrs. Hancock?" And Nicki said, "Yeah," but she didn't remember the woman. And the woman said, "Well, I'm Sarah Harbaugh. My husband is Jim Harbaugh, and you were my high school English teacher back in Kansas."
Wow. Wow.
So Sarah told Nicki her maiden name was Fureborn, and Nicki said there were about 9 Fureborns. So okay. I remembered her as being one of them. So that's a great connection for teachers to have people come back and say, "You started me on the path."
Awesome.
And I think it's important for people like you and me to still remember those people who started us on the path and make sure that you tell them about it.
No doubt. So we're winding up here, but 2 very important questions to wrap up. College athletics is going through any number of different changes. If you had the chance to shape the future of college athletics, what would you think that it would look like? The structure, the size of the conference, separation of Olympic sports, a lot of different types of things have been floated in terms of what needs to happen in the future. You're the czar, and you're going to change and make college athletics even better than it is.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We all think about it every day. I'm heartbroken by what has happened to the Pac-12. To me, that's inconceivable. But our enterprise will get through all this. We will get through. We'll figure out NIL. We'll figure out the portal. Football needs special attention, but so does basketball. And when people say take football out of the equation, well, maybe that's okay, but why? And what do you want to do that? We have to keep our eyes on the prize, which is the young people, of course. But if they ever become employees of the university, as some who are suggesting, then we're going to lose what we have. We'll lose our charm. I would say the Charlottesville AAA Knights would not be near as popular as the Virginia Cavaliers are. So let's don't go down that path. I'm in favor of, I think give Charlie Black and the NCAA a chance to give more voice to our group, to the football bowl subdivision, and positive things can happen. So I'm not concerned about our enterprise. A lot of people are. I know things have changed, and for guys your age and my age, it's way different than what we signed up for. But our college sports is very resilient, and we'll work through all this.
And the other thing, going back to the message that you delivered earlier, let's not forget about the connection to education and academics. And that does at times seem to be lost as all these changes take place.
Yeah, for people to go back to campus and say, look at that kid, the left guard, he's going to school in the same buildings where I went to school. He's a student just like I was. If we ever lose that, we're toast.
last question, and this is just a question about the kind of advice that you're giving people that come into the college football playoff, the kind of advice that you would give to aspiring administrators and coaches.
Listen, learn, read, pay attention, show up early, stay late if they'll let you. You have a whole opportunity to grow as a person from the people that you're around, and take every advantage of it.
Would you let me add one more? Because you referred to this earlier. Value and develop relationships.
Amen. Amen.
Yep. And to that point, Bill, the relationship that you and I have, our spouses, is a relationship that I greatly value. I certainly appreciate your willingness to spend some time at one of the busiest parts of the year for you and for your team. To spend the time as you have this morning is certainly valued by me. You're a great friend. You've been a wonderful, wonderful representative of college athletics, and I'm just proud to know that I can pick up the phone every once in a while and hear your voice.
Well, thank you, Paige. I treasure our friendship, and you're on my speed dial. And although we don't see each other as often as we once did, I still treasure that. I don't know if you noticed, but we have a law here in Texas where the lights go off in your office if you don't move around. So that could be a metaphor for life. The lights go off if you don't move around.
You have to move around. Well, you've done a lot of moving around, both professionally and personally. Wish you all the best in the world, and all the things that may be in front of you in the future, and getting to 70 plus NCAA Final Fours. We wish you all the best with that endeavor too. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Paige. See you soon.
Thank you.